Hey, modern historians, let's now talk about this idea of Marxism, Bolshevism, start getting our head around what they believe. It's a fairly complicated idea, so I'm going to try and keep it simple and short for you. Okay, so what's the Bolshevik and who are they? Your textbook's great on this. Again, I can't encourage you enough to use the textbook. Bolsheviks, they follow Marxism. What's Marxism? They are the ideas, or it's the philosophy, of a German writer called Karl Marx. He was living in Britain. In 1848, he wrote a book called The Communist Manifesto. He co-wrote it with a guy called Friedrich Engels. Engels mainly paid the bills. Marx largely wrote it, and his name is connected to it. The key idea of Marxism is this end state, this utopian state that gets referred to as communism. Now, basically, in a nutshell, you can see on the screen here, and you might want to annotate it. Marx believes that all of history is a struggle between opposing forces, a thesis and an antithesis. The two ideas clash and produce something new. It could be referred to as the motor of progress. An idea produces its opposite. These two ideas, the idea and its opposite, clash, and a mix emerges called the synthesis. That new idea becomes the new thesis, the new idea, and it always will create its opposite. And this will go on through class struggle over and over through the centuries until only one idea remains, and that is communism. Marx believes that this struggle is always between people with power, wealth, money, and those who did not have power, wealth, and money. He believed that a capitalist society in which private ownership created a situation where the haves and have-nots between the exploiters and the exploited would have ultimately disappeared. And you'd have this perfect utopian world, a communist society where people would work and contribute according to their abilities and share what they have according to needs. So let's do some basic ideas, or go through some of the basic ideas of this guy here, Karl Marx. We then need to look at who Lenin is, the leader of the Bolsheviks, the Russian Marxist group. Okay, a few ideas. Firstly, Bolsheviks are a left-wing ideology, a leftist ideology, a very revolutionary and progressive ideology. Bolsheviks are Marxists. It's revolutionary. It doesn't believe in a slow, gradual change. It'll just evolve. It requires action. It requires rising up and overthrowing the capitalist, liberal bourgeoisie. The exploiters need to be forcibly removed. Marxists, Bolsheviks, are internationalist in outlook. They believe that nations are really constructs of the exploiting classes, that the world workers have a shared common interest. It's an atheistic ideology. It believes that churches, religions are exploiting the masses as well. And it believes that underpinning their ideology are scientific, rational thought processes, not the superstitions of the past, as is represented by religion, according to them. So the first stage, communism, according to Marxist ideology, is the final, highest form of human development. It would be a perfect utopian state where all property would be shared, all people would embrace each other as equals, and everyone would work for the common good without there needing to be governments, nations, or divisions in society. They believe that ultimately the nation, the government, would wither away as unneeded. There'd be no need for laws because everyone would work for the common good. Marx anticipated that communism would come into place after a historical process, and that historical process has distinct, identifiable phases that happen over centuries. He anticipated that the oppressed urban industrial working classes, a group he called the proletariat, in nations such as an industrialized Britain, Germany, United States, would rise up against the old order, That old order would be the privileged capitalists, the liberal bourgeoisie, nationalists, those people who basically benefited from the French Revolution. They would be overthrown by the rest of the working classes. He felt that the proletariat, this industrial working class, would at first need to be led by a cadre, a group of leaders of the Communist Party, a group of Bolshevik, if you like, revolutionaries who could see the capitalist world for what it was. And this alliance of educated revolutionaries and the proletariat working class would establish a temporary dictatorship of the proletariat, which would end all inequality, and restructure society, whether the bourgeoisie and others accepted it at first or not. The capitalists would be forced to share under this dictatorship. Now, it's a workers' dictatorship that would end inequality, restructure society, and it in turn would wither away, leaving a pure a communist utopia in its wake. I'd argue that Marx's idea of a communist state has never existed. While we've had communist parties, really they've been the cadre, if you like, these revolutionaries who want to take power in order to create a new world, perhaps. Sometimes they hold on to power for their own interests. So Lenin himself, who takes power after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, becomes a form of dictator. And that state he creates never withers away as Marx would have envisaged in 1848. Let's have a look at a really famous and powerful artwork. We're going to come back to it a lot. It's a lithograph of Russia under the Bolsheviks by their opponents. So this lithograph is called Sacrifice to the International. Take a moment to see if you can identify some of the key figures in it. Well, there's so much in it, we'll come back to it. Hit pause, think about it, label it. Pause now. Okay, hopefully you identified the scene here as representing Bolsheviks and communists killing a victim on the altar of Karl Marx. Number one here, look at his face, representing Marxism. Hopefully you recognized who number two was. Number two here, the high priest of the Bolshevik communists, is Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, wearing red, the color of communism. Number three, we've got a sailor in his sailor suit. We've spoken about the importance of the sailors to the Bolshevik Revolution. And here they are, drawn fairly unflatteringly, wearing the red star of communism, wearing the red star symbol of the Bolsheviks, which shows up on multiple locations throughout the image. Number four is a really interesting character, and we're going to come back to her quite a bit. This character here, you might have thought represented the Tsar, might have represented the Tsarina, but no, in fact, she's a mythical character, referred to as Mother Russia. She represents Tsarist Russia, a female image of Russia that is being sacrificed, like a human sacrifice on the altar, to Marx and Marxism. And the last characters over here, five, I want to draw your attention to, are the Bolshevik armies themselves. We'll come back to so much more in this image, but I just wanted to introduce you to how important Marxism and Bolshevism were to this concept of revolution in 1917, and this artwork is a great way of starting that. As I say, we'll come back to the artwork quite a bit.